Holes, I'm just going to introduce what we're talking about today, and then I'll get you to join. Hello everyone joining so far. We'll wait for a few more people to join and then we'll get started. But I hope you're all well. I hope you're all good and keeping safe. Oh no. Okay guys, we'll get started, otherwise it's literally just going to be me sitting here reading through my notes. But good evening and welcome to another talk with Peer to Peer. Thank you to everyone who's joined so far. Hopefully more people will join as the live goes on. So today we're going to be discussing mental health again. I know we've already done a live on mental health, but today we're going to be talking about some other mental illnesses that there are. So in the last live we covered more anxiety and depression. So today we're going to be covering a lot of the other silent and invisible illnesses that there are out there, and the live, as we're always doing, is to try and create awareness to help you guys and to also help us to understand what these mental illnesses are, and ways that we can support our friends, family, co-workers, their kids, their nieces, their nephews, whatever it is. We're just trying to do these so that we can try and support our communities the best we can. So as per usual, I will start off with my stats. So in the United Kingdom, 1 in 100 children are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So as you know, with autism, it is a spectrum. So there are different levels of autism. We'll kind of go into that a little bit later. So while it's estimated around 700,000 people in the UK are diagnosed with autism. So that's 700,000 people that are diagnosed with autism. And then the final one that I've got is 6.1 million children have been diagnosed with ADHD, with 2.4 in the age bracket of ages 2 to 5 and 9.6% ages 6 to 11. So that's kind of like the younger ages when they normally tend to start noticing symptoms. It's around those ages. So just to kind of explain what the different disorders are and the different mental illnesses, what they entail, and the kind of signs. We'll go through the signs that you can look for as well, but just briefly. So today we're going to be talking about ADHD, we're going to be talking about autism. So the ADHD is about an attention deficiency, basically. So they have difficulties focusing, staying still, concentrating, not being disruptive. Sometimes it can be considered misbehavior, but it's actually not. It's part of their condition. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to have our lovely guest on. You guys are going to have a shock. Whoever does not have Hollie on social media, you are due to have a massive shock. So Hollie has done an amazing thing, which I'm going to get her to come on and speak about. And yeah, let's get her on, and then you guys will know what I'm talking about. So Holes, if you want to request, oh wait, no, it's okay, I've got you here. Join.
Hola!
Oh, hello, darling.
How are you?
I'm good. Look at you, look at you, look at you. You're looking so fine, girl. So fine.
Thanks, girl. Thanks. Thank you.
So everyone knows that we had our amazing Hollie on a number of times, but when you saw her, she had a mountain of hair.
Literally, I had a full mane, and now I'm a bald baddie.
How are you finding it? Are you enjoying it? Do you find it easier?
I honestly love it. Like, I'm so in love. Like, I don't even know if I'll have long hair again. That's how much I love it. And like,
it looks like it's grown already.
No, it has grown loads. Obviously, it's like slicked down a bit today, but it has grown so much. I did it exactly a month ago. I did it the 29th of March on my birthday.
Yeah.
So I love it. Where I work out quite a lot, it's so good just to stand under the shower and just
You
be
don't
in
have
there
to
with the
worry about the
shampoo.
hair getting wet and
Yeah. But the
I know.
funniest thing is, there's been so many people that have come up to me and been like, I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you from? I'm like, I cut my hair off. They're like, oh my gosh, Hollie.
How
Oh, thank you,
funny.
Carly. Thanks. So she's
Oh,
obsessed with
bless
this hair
you.
on me. Thank
It
you.
looks
I'm honestly living my best bald life, and people keep going like, "Can I touch it?" And they're like, "Oh my!" Like they can't believe that I've done it.
I can't wait to touch it. I'm literally gonna be like, oh
Oh yeah,
wow.
because I haven't seen you, have I?
No, I saw you on
So
your birthday. So
you saw me at the beginning when you did these lovely nails for me, and
yeah.
you didn't know. I didn't tell you, did I?
No, you told me you were dyeing your hair purple. You didn't say anything about shaving your hair off.
And
When
then
I
she's like,
oh my god. So let's talk about why you've done it. Why did you cut your hair? Because I know it was for an amazing cause. So
yeah. So for those who haven't heard the story before, I'll give you a bit of context. I've been wanting to cut my hair for at least a year, like the first lockdown. But you know, the first lockdown, there was a lot going on. I lost my job. We're in the middle of this crazy pandemic. Nobody know what's going on. I was like, Holly, don't do Britney Spears. Like, just wait. Like, don't make no rash decisions. Just
yeah.
hold out. I forgot about it, and then the idea came into my head again. And I sort of thought about it a bit more, and I kind of did it for two reasons. First reason was like personal to me. I just wanted to change. I wanted to switch it up. I just wanted to, and I've spoken to loads of people who had cut their hair, and they just said that they felt so revitalized and regenerated when they cut their hair. So that was the first thing. And the second thing, I wanted to make it into a more altruistic act and do some good out of it. So I did some research, and there's a charity called the Little Princess Trust, and they make wigs, like human hair wigs for sick children. So they may have cancer or other illnesses that may cause hair loss. And they've recently started accepting Afro hair. So I thought, great, I can donate my hair to this charity. And what I also did whilst I cut it off on Instagram Live. It was a whole event. Everyone was involved. It was emotional. But then what I also did is I raised money for a charity called Black Minds Matter. Now, Black Minds Matter, they came about around like June 2020. That's the first time I remember hearing about them, because George Floyd had just been murdered. There was a lot of protests. There was a lot of, you could see discrepancy and discrimination in terms of also how COVID was affecting Black people.
Yeah.
As well. And so they came about to provide free mental health services to people in the Black community. And I just thought that was so amazing thing to do. Number one, because mental health services are so hard to access as it is. And number two, mental health and neurodiversity in general can be quite taboo within the Black community. It's not necessarily something that everyone is open with, or depending on like your parents' background, they might just be like, just carry on, just keep going. And sometimes the the mental health stuff gets lost in all of that. So I just thought it was great to raise awareness and raise money for that great cause as well.
Amazing. So with regard, I know obviously you don't work for the charity, so you're not going to be able to give me a full insight into what it is, but do you have an idea of like how people are able to contact them? Is it via Instagram? Is it on their website?
So they have a website. If you go to their Instagram's blackmindsmatter.uk, and there I'm sure they'll have all their links signposted there. But if you go into their website, they operate from like a waitlist perspective. So put it this way, some people that signed up in June, they're only receiving their therapy now it started in March. The third wave started in March because so many people signed up, and they only have so many slots and so many therapists available. So from June last year, or I think it was June, I can't remember exactly, but anyway, it's 12 weeks of therapy for free. And you kind of get to choose your therapist. 12 weeks, 12 sessions. You get to choose your therapist in the sense that you say what it is that you particularly want to work on, or if there's any particular issues that are coming up for you, or like whatever it is. And then they match you with someone based on their specialisms and based on what you want to work on, and what issues you're going through at the moment. And And then, yeah, you have your consultation and you receive your 12 weeks of therapy. And what they're doing at the moment is they're trying to raise money so that this can be a continuous thing, because it's a charity, so it costs money to run. Also, these therapists are giving up their time. So they're trying to make it an ongoing thing where they can continue to provide these services to people in need.
Amazing. So let's kind of move. I mean, what we'll do is we'll get those details, and we'll definitely be able to post them on our page so people are able to access. And also we could probably post about raising money for them as well, because I'm sure that a lot of people would be to donate and get involved with that. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Oh no, there's a delay. Oh God.
Oh,
Speak.
okay.
Oh no, it's okay. You're back. You're back. You're fine. So what I said at the beginning of the live is the previous live that we did on mental health. We discussed predominantly anxiety and depression, because I would say that they're two of the most common mental illnesses that people have to deal with on a day-to-day. Now, when it comes to things such as ADHD and autism, bipolar, all of those kind of illnesses, it's a little bit more difficult because they're not as easy to not necessarily as easy to spot, because anxiety and depression is not as easy to spot, but there's behaviors that they show that people will always link with bad behavior and not necessarily actual behavioral disorder. So what's your kind of point of view on trying to get people to support others with ADHD? Or like, I'll go through some signs that people can look out for anyway, but what's your kind of take on it? What's your opinion?
I think when it comes to diversity, that any kind of diversity, whether it's cultural diversity, whether it's neurodiversity in the case that we're talking about now, I think the number one thing is being open-minded. Because sometimes it's hard as the person that may be diagnosed with a certain behavior disorder or is going through different signs and symptoms for them to recognize that in themselves, because maybe they don't tick all the boxes. And so as someone else who's providing support, I think being open-minded and not trying to tell them their experience and listen to their experience, because I'm sure like you go through signs and symptoms, but everybody experiences things in different ways. Me and you can watch the same film and feel completely different about it. So in the same way, two people could, for example, have ADHD and have completely different symptoms. And it's not for me to say, you don't have this because you're really sociable. That's not how we, learn and understand each other. So I think being open-minded and being accepting is probably the number one thing that I would say.
100%. I also feel like as someone who, I mean, people tried to say that my behaviour when I was younger was potentially portraying or showing signs of some sort of behavioural disorder, just because it's something that my mum repeatedly said to me. I don't feel like it's carried me through that much into my adult life. I would say that I'm still quite aggressive and angry, and sometimes I'm not in control of my emotions, and sometimes I shouldn't have said, but it may potentially be because of that. I've never been diagnosed, and I feel like these disorders came about not actually very long ago. It wasn't long ago that they started diagnosing certain people with these disorders. I feel like a massive thing, what you just said was to be understanding and also to educate yourself on it, because you never know that you might have a child with that, you might have siblings, you might have nieces and nephews, you might have family members, your friends, whatever. And I think it's just really, really important to look out and be very, very observant of the signs, because they're going through something that we will never understand.
100%. And like Morinike, who's also a therapist, and she was on my live a few weeks ago, so go and follow the Free Independent. She said that trauma is often misdiagnosed as ADHD, and Vinnie Scott is saying that a lot of mental health is stigmatized a lot as border personality disorder, as they're mainly portrayed as manipulative and abusive because of the shift in the emotional range. And then they've said that personal experience, once they hear you have a personality disorder, you're portrayed as a threat. So yeah, it's just being very open-minded about someone's experience and actually listening to what they're saying, as opposed to trying to project what
Just
you think you know.
just going back to what Vinny's just said, I feel like there's a massive stigma around people who have personality disorders as well. So if you've got someone who is suffering with bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever the case is, that it affects their moods, it affects their ability to be able to communicate in the right way, they're automatically labelled as crazy. And what people realise is that they can't help it. And it's not necessarily always medication. I feel like medication is always pushed on these people straight away to just numb them, dull them out, so that they're not feeling what they really need to feel with, what they want to feel. But what kind of links that to people who are suffering from these silent illnesses and these hidden illnesses is sometimes actually putting them in an environment where they're with people who are the same as them and with professionals who can support them. So for example, with children and young people, there are specific schools, there's specific colleges, there's so many different facilities that they're able to be put forward for. I'm not obviously going to mention any names, but one of my friend's nephews has recently been diagnosed with autism, and he doesn't speak. He's 3 years old and he doesn't speak. So whole kinds of thing of, oh, do we just send him to a nursery, a mainstream nursery, or do we send him to a nursery that supports autistic children? And they've gone for autistic children, because I do genuinely believe that if a child is around other people like them, they don't feel left out, they don't feel the strain of trying to keep up with other people in their class, they don't feel the pressure of trying to be normal in their classes. And I feel like that's a massive contributing factor to them being able to grow up and actually live a normal life and not have to bear the burden of struggling with their mental illness.
100%. And I think that being in a school that has people that are specifically trained for those needs. I mean, I've never done teacher training, so I can't speak to what you do and don't learn. I've never been, or we have done workshops, but I've never been like a full-time teacher, so I can't speak to the stresses of trying to support a group of 30 from 8 till 3. But I will say that when you do have young people with specific needs, well, everyone has different ways of learning and they all have different needs, but sometimes those schools are the best just because this child is at ease, because they're in a comfortable environment. And then also the teacher is at ease because they've got the skills and the toolkit to be able to help these children and develop them and nurture them, as opposed to, you're not listening, you're going into detention, oh, now you're expelled, oh, now you don't have no GCSEs because you've missed so much school.
No, 100%. Oh, you know Chantel, don't you? Is that who you were talking about? Yeah. That was one of my old school friends. So she's just said that obviously medication is the quickest way, basically, and it's prioritized by the system. And like she said, therapy is not as profitable as medication in the long run, as it is with the whole kind of health system. It's pushing medication and not dealing with the actual issues at hand, because it makes the money. And that's why it's important for there to be organisations, whether they're government funded or not, to have certain organisations that believe that therapy is the way forward, and that sometimes comes in a form of a school. So
and I think sometimes as well, due to the like, everybody has a GP, so if you're feeling under the weather, or if there's physically something that you're not quite happy about, or you're a bit sick or whatever, you can call a doctor who can give you advice, or sometimes same-day treatment for a physical illness. But there isn't any mental health equivalent. I would say the easiest thing if you needed immediate help is like 999 if it's an emergency, or a helpline like Samaritans, or for young people, Young Minds, or something like that. And there isn't that emphasis culturally and in society for people to have ongoing checking on your, like, not just mental health, but then also, early diagnosis makes a huge difference. Like, for example, with the...
Just so shocked when you said the Black Minds Matter offer free 12 weeks free. I was like, wow, 12 weeks, that's amazing, because when I was the NHS through talking therapies, you only get 6 weeks. So you only sessions, and I just felt like it was too rushed. They were trying to cram too much into an hour. Sometimes
Yeah.
for half an hour, 45 minutes. They weren't even an hour.
Yeah.
And I just feel like because the NHS is so understaffed, they're so underpaid, there needs to be more money invested in mental health. And I just feel
110%.
it's not happening, because even when I had initially put myself on the waiting list, I had to wait 4 months. The only
Yeah.
reason why, the only way they call you for an initial assessment and they ask you if you're at risk of self-harming, if you're at risk of suicide, any of the kind of immediate emergency actions that they have to take, that's all they do. They leave you to it. But what they don't understand is that in that time frame, you could progressively get worse, and it could escalate to that point.
Yeah. So, as Chantel said, that CBT doesn't work for everybody, just like standard school doesn't work for everybody. And Vinny's gone on to kind of reiterate what you've said.
Yeah.
Said it's only prioritised once you've reached a crisis, but prevention's always better than cure, right? And it's always better to, help somebody, like, turn the gas off before you burn the whole house down, kind of thing.
Before the pot starts boiling, you want to just turn it down, don't you? So I feel like it's an ongoing issue, and it's trying to find ways. I mean, I feel like organisations such as Black Mind Matters and things like that, organisations like that are doing the best that they can under the same. They haven't got the resources to be able to provide millions and millions, and especially because of a pandemic and because of lockdown, that it's gone through the roof. People's
has gone through the roof. And I also sit on the board for another mental health charity called Benny, but they work primarily with children. So they go into schools, and you'll be surprised how many of these like primary school age children, so 8 and 9 years old, that have anxiety or don't want to go outside or all these different things. And it is good now that there's a lot more awareness about it. We're having a lot more conversations on the internet. There's a lot more free resources, for example, like journals or different activities that you can do. But I do think that there's so much more to be done.
I feel like it needs to be, there's only so much that you can do before you need professional help.
Yeah.
Like going online and Googling ways to calm myself down or ways to deal with my intrusive thoughts or whatever, you can only do that for so much, because you're still with your own thoughts. Your own thoughts away. You need to be able to communicate with someone and sit down with someone and just get it all off your chest, get everything off your chest. And then they give you different ways to be able, they give you coping mechanisms. So the only way that you're going to be able to get through it is if you do seek professional help. And unfortunately, the access is not.
And so there's a charity that works with young people and their mental health called Young Minds, and according to them, only 1 in 3 children and young people with a diagnosed mental health condition get NHS treatment. 1 in 3. That means 2/3 of them don't get any NHS care or treatment, which is astonishing, really, because when you're a child, that's when you're meant to, learn how to deal with the world. And if you need a bit more extra help, then you're going to go into adulthood without those tools that you need to help yourself.
100%. And just kind of going back to ADHD and autism. Now, I briefly touched on it before, but this live is also about helping create awareness for parents and carers and siblings and people who potentially have a young person in their life going through signs of a mental health. So I just wanted to kind of go through the different symptoms that people can look out for. Because I feel like that's also a massive contributing factor to helping a young person, is obviously seeing the signs, recognizing the signs, and being able to say, right, well, you've got that, and that. We need to try and get help. So, so with ADHD, it falls into 3 groups. So it's got inattentiveness, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So the inattentiveness. So that's failing to be able to give close attention to details, or making careless mistakes with their schoolwork, homework, even things at home, just making careless mistakes. Having difficulty keeping attention during tasks or play. Doesn't seem to listen when spoken to directly, so they're thinking about other things, they're not making eye contact, they're moving about, like you can just see the hyperness in them, you can tell. So does not follow through on instructions, or fails to finish schoolwork and chores and tasks, has problems organising tasks and activities, avoids or dislikes tasks that require sustained mental effort. So schoolwork and any kind of anything that they have to concentrate on and
for a prolonged period of time.
Prolonged period of time is like agony to them. They literally cannot do that. So I've also got here losing toys, books, pencils, and then easily distracted and forgetful. Then you've got the activity, which is like fidgeting, getting up from their seat in school, runs about, climbing up things, putting themselves in a dangerous situation. So like climbing up a fence or running into the road, or something like that. Has problems playing or working quietly, so they can't just sit down and enjoy their own company. They have to be running around and do whatever they're doing. And then it says is often on the go and also talks excessively. So and then you've got impulsivity, which is blurting out answers in class when they've been told to put their hands up, difficulty waiting in queues, difficulty just waiting for anything. They're so impatient, they just want to they want to be doing everything, like, they want to be doing absolutely everything. And then interruptions, so getting conversations, not really having the social skills to say, okay, well, they're having a conversation, let me wait until they're finished. No, I'm going to dive straight in and give my point.
And so I think some of that as well is sometimes interpreted by older people as impoliteness and having no manners, but actually it's like a compulsion, that they just have to get it out. And Shantz has made a wonderful point about it being harder to diagnose in girls because they typically have very different symptoms. So they might, where boys might externalize, I'm just using the terms girls and boys for the purposes of like these studies, boys might externalize their frustrations, and that might be very easy for other people to pick up on. Girls might be a bit more inward, and they might tend to have more of an effect on their self-esteem, and they might have more negative thoughts, which is difficult for an external person to recognize or pick up on. There are so many people. There's a whole woman that I used to be in a group with, and she has her whole work is about working with women with ADHD, particularly women who tend to be diagnosed later in life. So they're like 40 years old and then find out that they've got ADHD, and you're like, wow, now everything makes sense.
I feel like I'm just going to be completely honest. This is what peer-to-peer is. It's a safe haven. It's a place for us to be completely honest. And I believe with myself, there is definitely something going on, because Jake says it to me all the time. As soon as I'm in a room, it's like a whirlwind has hit that room. I'm like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do this. I'm dropping this. A prime example is I got up to close my window because the window was open in the living room. I got up, the candle was on. I got up, closed the window, and the whole candle has fallen over my sofa, on my rug, it's on my wall. I went into the kitchen and I yanked the freezer door open, and the whole door's come off.
Oh my gosh.
Like, this is what happened. For me, it's impulsivity. So as soon as I get that thought, I'm like, right, I need to go and do it.
Do it now.
I need to do it right this second, and I won't be able to stop thinking about it until I've
done it.
Like, I'm such a stress head. Everything, I have to cram everything into my head. Like, even today, it's still going to be manic later on, because I was doing my clients earlier today. Then I'm like, look, my sister's even just said, yeah, you're rough with everything. I'm so heavy-handed. Erratic and panicky, and there's just, my life is not calm. There's nothing calm. The only time I'm calm is when I'm asleep, and even then my other half tells me that I'm kicking him, I'm hitting him, I'm rolling over on him. Like, I don't just sit down and chill. My sister's just said again, even your emotions are impulsive. My emotions are so impulsive. I will literally go from being very like calm, okay, and then as soon as something triggers me, I'm either extremely angry, or I'm extremely happy, or I'm extremely.
It's like you've got a rocket up here,
literally,
you're like,
literally every single time I get up. Like today, I've tried to cram too many things into my day because I think that I'm able to do everything in one day, which I'm not. Like I've still got to leave after this live. I've got another client. I've got to go and pick up Kai. Like, and in my head, I'm just thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then I'm driving. I'm thinking, oh my God, like I'm speeding because I'm trying to get somewhere so quickly, but there's traffic in front of me. I'm honking my horn. I'm screaming. Oh my God, my life is erratic, guys.
And so how do you, as someone who hasn't had any like formal diagnosis, but some of these symptoms resonate with you, like how do you get through the day?
To be honest with you, I don't really get through my day. I actually don't. I get through my day with my emotions going up and down. I'm stressing out. None of my day, there is not a single day in the week that I'm not stressed or panicking about something. And this is why I attempted to try and go down the therapy route. I started doing a couple of sessions, CBT sessions, and I just felt like all I was getting was, I know it sounds weird because this is what they're supposed to do, but I just felt like she was just giving me tools to deal with it by myself. But that's not what I needed. I need to kind of dive deeper into where my stress comes from, where my symptoms come from, what's going on, what do I do now? Do you know what I mean? And I don't feel like I got the chance. I mean, I definitely will start therapy again, but I just feel like at the minute, because I've had a slight bad experience with it, and I felt like I wasn't doing anything. And again with that, I was rushing and panicking every time I know that phone was going to ring. I'd be waiting, saying, "Oh my God, right, everyone, get out! No one make any noise! Don't you dare!" Do you know what I mean? Like, screaming and shouting in the house because I'm like, right, I'm having my session, and then I have the session, and I'd just be like, "Well, this was a bit of a waste of time. I didn't feel like I was gaining anything from it, or that I was changing my mindset at all." I don't.
I feel like what you've just experienced is probably a lot of people's accounts, like first experience with therapy, especially like no disrespect to the NHS, but I feel like a lot of people hear how good and how life-changing therapy is.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
They get over this barrier and they put themselves forward on a wait list, whether it's paid for or not. And then maybe the first person they speak to isn't the right person. And now I've met so many people in my life, not all of them I'm friends with. And so as a therapist, it's kind of like the same thing. Like you're opening up about them. They're going to have their own style. You're going to want different things. And you might not know what you want at the time neither. So if sometimes, even though you don't want to pour out your vulnerabilities to different people all the time, sometimes it is just about finding the right person. And sometimes that is easier privately, because then you can actually say, like, I want someone who talks like this, or you can call them for a consultation and be like, I need someone who's gonna like dive deep with me, as opposed to who's just gonna give me a workbook to do in between sessions.
That's exactly what it was.
And there's also a directory of because some people might prefer to specifically speak to a Black or Asian therapist, and there's a directory and you can go through it. I'll see if I can find it and find the name. And you can find you can search by their specialism, you can search by area. Obviously, a lot of things are on Zoom now anyway. And I think that's so important, because that people know that it's not going to be like a one-hit wonder. Like, you're not just going to talk to someone and all your life's problems are going to go away, because it is a bit of doing your own work. But at the same time, you do need to find the correct person to support you.
100%. And I feel like this goes back to kind of labels and stuff like that. I feel like also a massive contributing factor to me not even Shan, yes, I don't even know why I didn't think of that. I should have come straight to you. I don't know why I didn't. But yeah, no, I'll message you, Shannon. We'll definitely discuss. But I feel like my behaviour over the years, especially when I was younger as well, it was repeatedly labelled as, oh, she's angry, or she's aggressive, or she's just naughty. And then as I got older, it was like, oh, you're selfish, or you, again, you're extremely angry, or, and to be honest, mum kind of touched on it. She started touching on it because she had this she had this theory, right? There's no scientific proof that this was actually it, but everyone knows as well. So while my mum was pregnant with me, she had to have a cyst removed. I think, I feel like it was on her ovary or something like that. So it basically,
Yeah.
she believes that I was disrupted or disturbed in the womb when she had to have this surgery. And she potentially feels that because she was probably what, like maybe 16 weeks pregnant with me or something like that. So she believes that she was that I was disturbed in the womb, and that has contributed to
Plus,
having some behavioural issues.
you're a fire sign like me, and we're
I
not
am.
known for our patience.
No, we're not. But that
The
doesn't
ram.
help me. But it's like,
Literally, we're the ram.
oh my God, I've got no patience. But just to give people an understanding of what actually happens in my mind when I know I need to get something done, it feels like all the blood is rushing to my head, and it's like it makes me go zoom, and then I have to then start and do everything. That's how I make mistakes. That's how I
Yeah.
drop things, break things. How I do all of that is because I'm at 100 miles an hour. And I
It's
said,
like, you know, when you
today,
watch,
John,
I was gonna say, you know, when you watch those, I don't know, like them cartoons, and they've got a superpower, and they're just like, zoom, zoom,
I'm the
zoom, zoom.
Tasmanian.
Yeah.
That's what I am. I'm the Tasmanian devil. When I was younger, my cousin used to call me King Louis because he was just mad. He was just mental. Oh, what Shan said.
Yeah. So Shan and Vinny have been dropping gems in the chat.
Yeah.
So Shan said that there's ADHD psychiatry. If you're interested in them kind of tests, then there's templates that you can send to your doctor to get private testing on the NHS.
Right. What's that then? I didn't see that.
Yeah, she's the plug. She's the plug right now.
Yeah.
Vinny was saying that if
Yeah.
after your assessment the team think that you don't meet the threshold, you might be put in another team, and where you have to like repeat yourself. So that's probably another reason why people just drop out of the process.
Yeah.
Because it's just overwhelming and tiring.
Yeah. No, definitely. And what Hinna's just said as well, which I think is so important. And again, this is a place for us to be completely open. Unfortunately, a lot of my family have had to deal with the negative side of how I've acted and how I've treated my family in the past and stuff like that. And what she's just said is that it's important for family members to be educated and actually access the support services as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Support their
100%. Because, you know, kids can be challenging, like, regardless. But when you've got a child that has specific needs, and maybe they're having a bit of a moment in the supermarket, that can be really it can be embarrassing for the parent. Or, you know, you might have other family members judging you, telling you you're a bad parent, telling you don't know what you're doing, as if being a parent isn't hard enough. So being able to just like being in the right school environment, equipping the parents with the right tools can also make sure that that home environment is somewhere where the child can thrive as well and be supportive.
Yeah, no, 100%. Lavinia's just said, unfortunately, they don't consult carers and family, even though they have first-hand experience. So when I mean by them accessing different services, there are services that they can just seek advice from. They won't actually bring you in for any sessions yourself or anything like that, but you can actually speak to services that will be able to give you support on what you need to do. What you can also do as well is communicate with the school. There's always a Senko at school, and they tend to liaise with parents and carers and family members a lot. So I mean, again, being completely honest on this live today, so when my son was at his old school, they brought me in to have a conversation with the Senko. She was absolutely amazing. She was great with him because they potentially thought that he might be on the spectrum of ADHD. They felt like he was showing signs of it. So the plan was to start doing some testing, but they but as time has progressed on, I've seen a massive change in him, and he's not kind of showing any signs of what they were saying that he was showing.
Yeah.
Started a new school. I've spoke to his teacher a couple of times. She said he's doing really well. The only thing is he is a very hyper child. He is hyper,
Yeah.
full of energy. He's full of beans, but he doesn't display any kind of signs of ADHD when he's at home.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so maybe he's just playing up a bit in school because he's showing off in front of his friends or whatever. I don't have any concerns that I need to go forward with any more testing. I just don't feel like he's showing enough signs. But that is also a good way of being able to get support for your child or whoever it is who you might potentially think is showing symptoms, is you can contact the school and they will put you in contact with a therapist from the school.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it was to start therapy sessions, and then obviously we moved him school, but I've spoke to this school about potentially him starting them up again, but they have said that he needs to be displaying signs of need, or they will, and they said he hasn't displayed it.
Well, that's brilliant. And I think also that just kind of reiterates Shan's point from earlier, that there can be other things going on in a child's life, and also children are children. Like, who wants to sit down and like not move and not talk for 8 hours? Like, not even I can do that. So I think we just need to be realistic about like what children do, what children should and shouldn't be doing. But there's also taken into consideration everything. Like, if I'm stressed at work, I'm probably going to come home and be a bit of a cow. So if a child's stressed at home, they're probably going to go to school and be a bit naughty. And it's not about trying to pigeonhole them into this label and that label. It's about how can we actually support this young person. Even Carly's just said a lot of schools are taking a more holistic approach.
I was about to say, a lot of schools have introduced meditation.
Meditation.
Sorry, not meditation. Into schools, and what my son's old school were doing as well, because he was actually given the opportunity to be able to do that. So they had a teaching assistant in the class, and if they felt like one of the children was just becoming distracted, being quite disruptive in the class, they'd actually take them into another classroom in the room where there was a mini trampoline, and they were allowed to just go in there and blow off steam, just jump on the trampoline.
Really? Oh, that's so cool. I want a trampoline.
That he was able to keep on him, and he'd say like if they noticed that he was going to start kind of disrupting the class, he was being a bit just a bit distracted. I can't even think of the actual word, but he was just being a bit difficult. They'd just take him into the other room and he was able to just go and blow off steam. And I think that's so important, because we forget that these kids, first of all, they're kids, and they're having to sit for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and they've got back-to-back lessons. I think about when I was in secondary school, and when I had 5 lessons in a day, my hour lunch and my 20-minute break was never enough.
It was never enough. And even like as an adult, I always try and take breaks, like go make a cup of tea or something, because sitting down for all those hours is just not a thing for me, especially like post-COVID, and they're not allowed to run around, they're not allowed to play football. There's so many things they're not allowed to do that kids do to like burn off some of their energy and just be children. I think we should not rob them of their like innocence sounds a bit strong, but like rob them of their childhood because we're trying to make it easier for us. It's not about us as adults.
Put in the in the chat. So Lavinia,
I want to go to Vinny's child school. This school sounds amazing.
I want to touch the dog and do yoga and everything, but that sounds amazing, and I feel like
this head teacher's done a master's in mental health, and so obviously has just doing everything in their power to make sure that these kids have what they need. Sensory garden, tai chi, therapy dog, chickens. Oh, that's a bougie school. That's in London, because
my mum actually created this thing for Kai, and what she did was she created a worry bag. So what she'd make him do is speak to her and explain to her and write down on a piece of paper all the things that were worrying him, and then they'd put it in the bag, and then once it was in the bag, it's like, right, okay, well that's gone, like put that in, it's there, so we don't
gone away now.
So that's a very good thing for younger children, not so much older kids, but definitely with younger children, because I feel like they struggle to communicate as well as older kids do, and as well as
Yeah.
adults. They're not intelligent. They're not actually intellectually capable of being able to
Yeah. And I
explain.
think look how many adults struggle to articulate themselves every single day. Some of these adults are university educated. So why do we expect children to be able to do that? Their
Yeah,
brains have not fully formed yet. I don't know how I've said this like 5 times this week. Like my brain only fully formed last year. Like your brain is only finished growing
not,
at 25.
not fully formed. I'm telling you now. It's not formed. I
But the
don't
brain,
feel
like
like an
on average, like and that's why they say that's probably why your insurance is so expensive until you turn 25, because the part
yeah,
of your brain that calculates risk isn't fully developed until around age 25. So imagine that, how much newness and how much learning and how much developing children are going through, and we
yeah.
expect so much of them all the time. It's
Oh,
like, hang on, they were just born into the world. Like they didn't have a manual. They didn't, choose Earth. They were just born.
it's so true. So what I wanted to touch on as well, just because we've got 10 minutes until the live is due to finish. So autism, so ASD, so autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
Now this one, autism is very, very difficult because Lavinia actually put it in the chat before, and because autism has got such a broad spectrum,
Yeah.
very easy for people to look at someone who has mild symptoms or is on the mild side of the spectrum and automatically just say, okay, well, you're not as bad as he is because he's on the other end, which means you're okay to carry on with your life. But
Yeah.
what they're forgetting is that people, whether it's mild, like if you let's just use this as an example, right? Say if you cut yourself, right? Initially it starts off as just a cut, but that can get infected. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because something is small or just because something is little, it can potentially turn into something a lot worse.
Yeah.
So
And I think as well, when we talk about these like neurodiversity experiences, we're not talking about like the Rain Man. Do you know what I mean? Like autism manifests in different ways for different people. So just because someone is able to hold a conversation doesn't mean that they don't need support with the other areas of their life.
yeah. So I just want to go through the signs and symptoms just so people are able to know what they're looking out for. Guys, if your child or your sibling is displaying this for one day out of a month, it doesn't mean you need to start panicking and saying, right, okay, my child's got autism, I need to go and get them diagnosed. It has to be a regular thing over a kind of long period of time. So I've got a lack of eye contact. So they literally avoid making eye contact with anyone. A
Yeah.
narrow of interest or intense interest in certain topics. Now, I've got a couple of my clients who actually have autistic children, and the two things that they basically, I mean, it's very common within autistic children and young people, is that they're massively talented with drawing. They are very, very talented with drawing, or
Yeah.
they're is impeccable. Sorry, hon. Yeah, or they are into anime. Anime is a massive one. A lot of autistic children are into anime. I don't know why.
Really?
A lot of people. I actually watched a documentary, and it's called Love on the Spectrum
Is that on Netflix?
on Netflix. You should watch it. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very, very good. So it's a bit like Undateables, but it's just purely for people who have got autism, and you watch them in social settings, you watch them go on dates, and they talk about what they're up to and the things that they're into, and a lot of them talk about anime. A lot of them talk about anime.
Really? Wow, that's interesting.
Devices, gaming, they love gaming. So on that program that I was watching, one of the girls who had autism, she went on a date with another boy who had autism, and she brought out her Nintendo Switch out of her bag and just sat there playing with her Switch while they were supposed to be on a date. They didn't even speak, bless them. But yeah, so it's kind of like an intense interest in things, and that's just what it. So doing something over and over, like repeating words or phrases, rocking back and forth, or flipping a lever. So just like turning a switch on and off, on and off, on and off repeatedly. High sensitivity to sounds, touches, smells, or sights that seem ordinary to other people. Lavinia just said anime is great, but sadly not appreciated in the art world. So not looking at or listening to other people, they just zone out. They're not able to get involved in the conversation.
Yeah.
Not looking at things when another person points to them. So like you could say, so for example, my friend's nephew, if you say to him, oh, look at that tree, he'll just keep on running. He'll just ignore what you said
Yeah.
completely. Not wanting to be held or cuddled or touched. Problems understanding or using speech, gestures, facial expressions, or tone of voice.
Yeah.
In a sing-along, flat or robotic voice. That's also a massive thing on Love on the Spectrum. There's a boy on there who's
Really.
he talks like he's being recorded, like that's literally how he speaks, so it's crazy. And then trouble to adapting to changes in routine. So if they do the same
Yeah.
day in day out and anything is out of routine, it's like, oh my god, this is chaos, and they just can't deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I've seen as well recently is, 'cause I saw it because Katie Price's son wears a t-shirt that says something like, I don't like loud noises or to be
Yeah,
touched, because, you know, I think it's something that we just assume that everyone wants everyone wants you in your personal space, or,
yeah,
you know, and it's just allowing other people around to be able to be like, okay, this person needs a bit more support, or just don't do that. Like, I think
yeah,
COVID has helped with that as well, with people just learning about
definitely.
social
You know,
distance. But
talking about
also, I think it's
people
so
approaching other people and like touching them or whatever. There was actually something that I saw on social media, and I know it's not in this country, but I think it might
about the
potentially.
American house.
No. So it's in like a shopping center or something, and there's
Oh,
two
okay.
baskets that you can pick up, and one is saying, right, okay, I need help, you can approach me, and the other one is like, no, I'm fine, don't approach me.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
feel
yeah,
like
I have seen
that
that.
should be something that should be implemented in every supermarket, shopping mall, whatever.
Yeah.
It should be implemented, because a lot of people tend to just jump into people's faces and start talking to them, and it can panic people. If
Yeah.
someone's got autism, it can panic them and cause
Yeah. And I think especially for anyone that is a first responder, anyone that is emergency service, this should be an integral part of their training, because
yeah,
um, if someone came up to me, I I can kind of like gauge and, you know, read the situation and maybe be able to deal with it better. But if someone doesn't have that social understanding, or they're panicked, or it's triggered them, then they might act in a way that is actually threatening to the person that's trying to help them,
yeah,
and then you can end up in quite tragic situations. So
yeah,
I think in schools, like, just like we learn about all the thousands kings and queens of this country, we should be learning about the different types of people. Because
100%.
why is it until we get into adulthood that we learn about these things? And it's usually because it's someone that's close to you that's been affected. Not a lot of us
Yeah,
go out of our own way to learn about these things,
yeah,
especially when they're portrayed in such a I would say problematic way on
yeah,
TV.
yeah, yeah. I was also going to say that shed I don't want to shed light on this situation in a negative way. I want to reassure people, just to give you guys an example as well, reassure you that sometimes autistic people are not necessarily unsociable, or that they actually struggle to,
Yeah.
they don't always struggle in social settings. But one of my clients, her it's one of I think it's one of her friend's sons. So he's like I think he's like 28 or something like that, and he still lives at home with his mum and his dad. And he wakes up every single morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and goes into his mum's house and stands over his mum's bed and says, "We need to go to the shops. I want to go to the shops. I want to go to the shops. I want to go to the shops." And over until she gets up and she takes him to the shops.
Yeah.
Now, what he also does is he gets lanyards from these different places, and he goes into the shops and pretends that he works there, because he actually likes people coming up to him and saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
this where can I find this?" But then he responds and says, "Oh, I don't actually know, because I don't really work here, but." And they're like, "Oh, okay, but you've got like for some places he's actually got the t-shirts for their
No
like
way.
managed to find the t-shirts, he's got the lanyards, he's got badges, he's got everything." And that goes back to the impulsive behavior that they may potentially show. So it's being
Yeah.
obsessed with things, obsessed. So he's obsessed with going to the shops, and he's obsessed with wearing
Yeah. Yeah. And Vinny's just made a good point as well, that
yeah,
sometimes they don't understand boundaries, so they'll be really close in someone's
Yeah.
face, and you know, there's ways of being able to be like, you're too close, without shoving someone away or wanting to
Yeah.
fight, especially if it's, I think as an adult sometimes it's a bit harder because you just assume adults know better.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that can be quite tricky because they just want to show you some love and see what's going on.
What are you doing? But this is going to
Okay.
cut off in 2 minutes. So I want
Oh,
to just...
okay. So should we do some signposting?
Yes, amazing. So, guys, as we always do, we will be posting up the different services that there are for you to access. You have us as well, that you can actually message, and we can put you in the right direction, put you in contact potentially with some of the organizations that we work with as well. Also,
Yeah.
remember, guys, we have the workbooks that are free of charge. All you have to do is send us an email or send us a message on Instagram, and we can get those emailed over to you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, interrupt selfish doesn't work for everyone.
But I
Okay,
hope everyone's found this useful and interesting, and hopefully if ADHD and autism is something that you didn't know about before, you've learned a bit more and you can go and continue your research at home.
amazing. Well, thank you, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Have an amazing evening, and I will see you in 2 weeks when we do the next live.
Ciao for now.
Later. Bye, hoes.
Bye.